Hello and welcome. Teaching Multicultural Education in the Times of Trump, a critical race theory perspective podcast to accompany my website and blog. Despite the argument that politics should remain out of the classroom, I assert this separation is both an impossibility and a necessity. Politics, society, and history shape our written and hidden curriculum. Who determines and teaches the curriculum? Who is privileged enough to obtain an education, and where the bulk of resources to ensure a quality education will go. I, Cresta Hancock, became more consciously aware of this in 2017 as a new university faculty member navigating the effects of a presidential election while simultaneously finding my footing after making the transition from the secondary classroom in an urban school district to the classrooms, meetings, and decisions of higher education. Those years were a time of adjustment, a period where my own cultural competency was still developing, and my critical lens was yet to be fully formed. But moving into the beginning of the spring semester in 2025 felt different. It wasn't just the familiar unease that accompanies political shifts, it was a deeper sense of urgency, a recognition that the stakes had been raised. Our semester at Ball State University began on January the 6th, the day of Donald Trump's second inauguration, and the weight of that moment settled heavily on the university campus where I spend most of my time, along with the PhD cohort I am a part of as one of many students in the UES program. 8 years into my journey of preparing future secondary educators with a broader teaching portfolio and a deeper understanding of the complexities of education, this sense of urgency, this recognition of immediate call to action compelled me to document this unique period of history in the making. Teaching a multicultural education course, a foundations course focused on the political, historical, and philosophical underpinnings of education, along with 2 practicum courses during such a politically charged moment in time, felt particularly significant. The conversations, the challenges, the very act of fostering critical dialogue in a climate of division, it all felt like a crucial chapter in the ongoing story of education. I began a personal journal, an engagement and critical reflection on the intersection of politics, culture, and pedagogy on January 6th, 2025. I started with the intent of one day using this journal as a lived experience, a thick and rich description of my personal and professional challenges, wins, thoughts, feelings, all might serve as data for future research and writing surrounding the power of education to illuminate, challenge, and ultimately transform. However, a week later, I discovered we had a final project for my intro to critical race theory course with Dr. Hayes. I decided to take the beginnings of my journal and use this project as an opportunity to beta test my idea, using the first 4 months of 2025 to lay the groundwork of my experience. My goal was to transfer my journal entries into some digital product, a digital product with multiple media representations, a way to document and reflect upon the experience of teaching secondary pre-service teachers the knowledge, skills, and dispositions necessary to create inclusive classrooms that support a culture of social justice on a predominantly white college campus in 2025. This digital format allowed me personal, reflective, and a variety of ways to explore the challenges and triumphs that I expected to encounter in this specific educational context. A time capsule, if you will, capturing the distinctions of the moment and highlighting the ongoing relevance of multicultural education and building of cultural competency in secondary pre-service teachers in a rapidly changing social and political landscape. Critical race theory then became central to my analysis and interpretation of my experiences as I documented them in my digital website, blog, and podcast. The key CRT concepts that I hope to employ include the centrality of race and racism, as I will examine how systemic racism manifests in the educational context, including institutional policies, curriculum choices, and classroom dynamics. I hope to explore how these systemic forces impact teaching and learning process. Valuing knowledge gained through experience. Using my own personal journal entries and reflections, student work, discourse with other instructors of similar courses will give me additional qualitative data rather than relying solely on course readings and conversations. Intersectionality, exploring various social identities, specifically race, gender, and class, and how they intersect to shape the experiences of my students, myself, my professional colleagues within the professional education courses, will highlight the complexity of navigating these intersections in a classroom setting, as well as a professional and personal settings. I will utilize counter storytelling and counter narratives as a method to challenge the dominant narratives that we are now hearing louder than ever and provide alternative perspectives to the political rhetoric that floods the news, social media, water cooler talk, driving down the road talk. I also intend to give voice to those in my classes that are experiencing 2025, not only as pre-service teachers, but as students with multiple positionalities, learning how to create inclusive multicultural classrooms while experiencing a multicultural classroom. This overall project will also reflect on the ways in which whiteness operates as a form of property, conferring certain privileges and unearned advantages. I will examine how this concept plays out in the classroom within a university that is primarily composed of white students learning with white professors. Multicultural education is a social justice-oriented approach that seeks to address issues of diversity, equity, and representation in schools. My project aims to reflect on the broader implications of the current socio-political climate on multicultural curriculum, instruction, and course participation for educational practice and policy. This also demonstrates a commitment to my own personal praxis as I model for my students how I work to strengthen my own cultural humility, recognize my positionality and bias in the classroom, and share my responsibility to social justice. A heavy reliance on personal reflection and narrative inquiry will allow a space to increase my reflective practice as an educator, which for me is a critical part of my praxis. This may not seem like a direct connection with being interdisciplinarian. However, All of the courses that I teach contain secondary education pre-service teachers from a variety of disciplines, not only bringing with them perspectives of identity, but also discipline-specific ways of knowing. I feel that this variety of perspective lends to a better understanding of historical context, particularly in relation to debates about CRT and diversity in education, and directly examines the intersectionality of education, politics, and analyzing from an interdisciplinary lens how political events and policies impact teaching and learning. I only have a few moments left, but I wanted to quickly walk you through what you will find as you navigate through the rest of this website. So on the home page, you'll see a brief overview of the project and how the website came together. A call to action, which links you to at least 4 different ways that you can continue to be involved in the process of speaking and defending and advocating for the rights of all people nationwide. There is a section there that talks to what is happening currently, daily, perhaps the day after. As an example, in today's news, I speak to one of the executive orders that was just signed into effect this past Friday. There's a quick introduction that comes from the course catalog. It tells you a little bit about the specific class I'm focusing on for these journal entries. As you navigate the rest of the website, the next page, Friends, Scholars, and Truth Seekers, that's where you'll actually find the blog where I took my journal entries and created a weekly blog that just kind of highlights, if you will, some of the things that were happening on the college campus or within my specifically 205 classroom, although I do speak to some of my other courses. I do have a copy of my 5-page written rationale connecting critical race theory to this digital artifact. Resources and links not only includes the annotated bibliography that I used for the 5-page written reflection, but also the textbooks and assigned readings that I used in my Multicultural 205 course, as well as some visual graphics that were repeatedly used in the course, a couple YouTube videos, one of the written assignments in that course. I also wanted this to become more of a living document, so you will find a page that links you to a Google form where I invite anyone visiting the site to comment, question, share their own lived experience, counter narratives. Again, just as an opportunity to create community, to work together, to transform. Unfortunately, many of the things on the blog, many of the things that happened on campus this semester were not very positive, are pretty heavy. And so I also wanted to include a page that just allowed us to celebrate some of the joy that we also had or saw happening during the past 4 months. This is where I reference some of my other courses as well, or some of the things that were happening perhaps outside of the classroom, outside of the campus community. And then lastly, I do have just a brief introduction to who I am as a professional. You'll see a picture there of one of the practicum courses that I teach which is one of the courses where a lot of the joy was occurring that I speak to on the previous page. You also see some information about all of the courses that I taught this semester, that do include or are included in some of my blog and journal entries. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you navigating my website. And I would truly appreciate it if you visit the reflections page and add your own comments, joy, lived experiences. Together, we'll make a difference.